Hey rockers, today's guest is Kip Winger, bassist and lead vocalist for the rock band Winger. Together we break down the smash hit single Headed for a Heartbreak, taken from their 1988 self-titled debut album. Kip shared how he had completely written and recorded all the demos that the band went in and re-recorded for the first record. It was after it was recorded that they shopped the album around to a number of record labels, eventually signing with Atlantic Records. In such an image-driven time in music history with MTV being in its heyday, I always felt like this particular track stood out from Winger's contemporaries at the time. The progressive elements combined with drummer Rod Morgenstein's over-the-top drumming was a complete 360 to what was happening elsewhere in the hard rock and glam metal genres. Kip was very upfront and honest when talking about producer Beau Hill's role with the record. He captured the band doing what they do, but didn't have to go overboard with rewriting or arranging parts, because the demos and songs were so solid from the get-go. And Kip talks about his early days playing bass for Alice Cooper and how jumping ship from that gig to set out on his own was a daunting prospect at the time, but something he felt he needed to do. For all this and a whole lot more, stay tuned.
Hey, hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast.
Kip, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Want to thank you very much for sitting in on the podcast. Been a big fan for many years, and just want to congratulate you on all your success.
Thank you. I'm sorry it took me so long to be able to actually do this.
Well, you've been a little busy, man. You guys have been gigging a lot.
Yeah, we started doing some gigs when the COVID stuff started opening up, and we're really busy this month and next month, so that's good.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, before we get started here, I want to give everybody a little bit of history on Winger. Kip initially rose to fame as bassist for Alice Cooper, performing on Alice's Constrictor and Raise Your Fist and Yell albums in 1986 and 1987, respectively. Just prior to that, in 1984, Kip's first commercial break came when he co-wrote the song Bang Bang for Kix's third album, Midnight Dynamite, where he met producer Beau Hill, who would go on to play an integral part in Winger's career. After playing with Alice, Kip and keyboardist-guitarist Paul Taylor, who also played with Alice Cooper, were joined by guitarist Reb Beach and drummer Rod Morgenstein, formerly of the Dixie Dregs, to form Winger. In 1988, the band, now signed with Atlantic Records, released their self-titled album to massive success, spearheaded by the singles Madeleine, 17, and the song we are going to break down today, Headed for a Heartbreak. The album, produced by Beau Hill, was a smash hit, going on to sell over 1 million copies. The band has released another 5 albums, the most recent being 2014's Better Days Coming. Kip has also had a very successful solo career, releasing 6 albums from 1997 through 2016. The band Winger continues to tour to this day. So that's my Winger history lesson, everybody. Thanks for bearing with me. And now we're going to rewind the clock all the way back and dive into Headed for a Heartbreak. Take us back to 1988 when you wrote this track. Do you remember writing it?
Yeah, I do. Reb and I were working in a studio in Upper East Side of New York and making demos for the first album. And I don't remember in the lineup of which number this song was, but I was messing around on the keyboard at one point and kind of came up with this Lydian thing. And I don't know, look, a lot of times the things just fall into your hands. I mean, any great artist will tell you that the best ideas happen by accident. So, I mean,
yeah,
the riff fell in my hands and I just kind of played the verse riff over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And a lot of times I'll come up with an idea and I don't know what to do with it for days or sometimes months and in some cases years.
Yeah.
But that one kind of came together in probably a month or so.
And now when you were doing these demos, was Beau Hill involved in this stage, or was this just between you and Reb?
It was just between me and Reb. I mean, Beau was involved in terms of encouraging us to write, but nothing beyond that. I produce all the demos. I don't know if you ever heard the demo anthology. So, that was all me and producing all of that stuff. So the album, actually the demo for Headed for Heartbreak is better than the album in many ways, in my opinion.
Headed for a heartbreak. Headed for
a lot of times when you do a demo, you capture all the magic, right? And so if you go in the studio then to like try to recreate the magic, I mean, it's impossible, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, in many ways, the demo's better, although it had a drum machine and stuff. I was really into programming. I had a Lin 9000 that was converted. There was a guy named For A who changed the Lin 9000, and I got really into the drum programming and stuff. And, you know, the demo sounds good. And, you know, Reb's original solo is on that demo. So we had to recreate it all when we went into Atlantic Studios for the album. And I actually don't think it's as good, to be honest with you.
That's interesting. I can relate to that because, like you said, sometimes you capture that magic, that initial guttural thing that you put down on, in this instance, tape. This is before Pro Tools, so you put that down and then you try to go recreate it, and you just can't capture the same magic.
Right. It's a problem. So I've long not. It's been a long time since I've made demos. You know, like if I'm gonna like, for example, we're making a new album right now, and we write the songs, and the second we get the arrangement together, I have Reb lay down the guitar tracks for the rhythms, and then I'll put a bass on. Although I always redo the bass after the drums. But I capture as much of it as we go that I can to use as masters, and I've been doing that since Winger 4, really. Because on Pull, we had a bunch of demos as well, and then we went in with Mike Shipley, although in that case, in every case on Pull, we beat the demo, so... Mike Shipley was just a masterful person to be in the studio with.
That's great. Well, that record sounds awesome, and I've seen some of yours and Reb's jams on social media, on Instagram, where you guys just turn the camera on and go, and it's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, very cool. The Pull record, just, I mean, I had a hard time picking a song. I think you guys are one of the bands from back in the day that have continued to get better at their craft and songwriting. I think Karma and I think Four is fantastic and some of the band's best stuff.
Thank you.
I love Pull, Down Incognito, of course, the classics, Madeleine 17. But I went with Headed for a Heartbreak, Kip, because I felt like this track, it really set you guys apart from what was going on. Yeah, you had MTV, you were put on there and lumped into the hair band thing, but there was so much more to you guys. Just Rod Morgenstein alone, his background with the Dixie Dregs and what he brought to the band. Reb was a virtuoso. You know, let's not forget Paul Taylor and yourself. I mean, you coming from your classical, background, and this song had those progressive elements, and it made you guys stand out. And I felt that was the track to talk about today.
I appreciate that. I mean, you know, the other standout about this song is that it had a really long guitar solo in the end, and it actually made it on the radio. And back then, that was that was kind of unheard of, you know. And it was kind of the fact that it was in a certain kind of mode and it had a certain kind of feeling and stuff. Really, I think it set it apart. I mean, you know, I'm proud of the track for sure. It's interesting because Atlantic wanted to half of the radio promoters back then. It was all radio promotion. Half of them at Atlantic Records wanted to have Without the Night be the third single. And we had one guy at Atlantic named Danny Bush who was the AOR radio guy, and he was like, no, you got to go with Headed. It's going to set you apart. You know, he was really instrumental in making that track the single. And so, you know, we really owe it to Danny Bush for making that the single and having it, you know, create that element of legacy. Especially at the end, you know, Rod kind of goes off and does his thing. And it showed the muso element of our band.
As history has proven, it was the right track to go with. I love Without the Night. I mean, that whole first record, State of Emergency, Hungry, there's so many great tracks. But as far as the ballad goes, Headed did set you guys apart. It was one of those things where it was just like, man, these guys can play. It was completely obvious. And just, I love parts of this song where, you know, it's just the bass and the keys, and there's Reb soloing. It's not like you got all these extra layers. It was like, this is what the band sounded like. And I think that in the 80s, you didn't see that a lot, especially in your genre.
Yeah, it's funny. Duff McKagan at one point pulled me aside and said, man, I really don't like bands like you and But that one song, man, that Headed for a Heartbreak's a great tune. And I appreciated that because coming from somebody in that faction, I think that was very telling. Yeah, so I mean, I'm very proud of the track. I stole the title from a friend of Paul's who wrote a song called, I can't remember what the title was. It wasn't Headed for a Heartbreak. It might have been Headin' for a Heartbreak. I thought, wow, what a great title. I'm like, can you copyright a title? And so it's like, I gave him credit on the album, but I do admit that I grabbed that title from somebody else and then made it my own. It's like there's a million Heartbreaker songs out there, but
right.
And then people always go, man, I love that song, Heading for a Heartache, or whatever the Def Leppard track is.
So when you were with Alice doing those records, Constrictor and Raise Your Fist and Yell, and around 86, 87, were you like writing and doing demos for this first Winger record? Or was that after you left his band that you set out to pursue this? Or was that already kind of in the works? Were you kind of going back to the tour bus in the hotel? And
the song that did carry over was Without the Night, because Paul and I, when we met, we started writing in hotel rooms, and Paul had a little Ensoniq keyboard, and he had this idea, and I took the idea, and then we parted ways, actually, and I finished it later, and I borrowed a bunch of Miles Away melody in the chorus of Without the Night, so it's very similar when you listen to it, and I didn't like rip it off, but I mean, I unconsciously was singing Miles Away, without the night, this would be so much easier. So miles away, no, you're never turning back. It was basically the same. So, I don't know if Reb is credited on Without the Night, but Paul and I wrote that. But other than that, we got Reb and I in the studio started fresh. I mean, the first song I don't remember the first song. I always say, well, the first riff that Reb ever played me was 17. He wrote that when he was 15. He was like, I never knew what to do with it. So we worked on that. And
amazing riff.
And then, we came up with a bunch of other stuff, Madeleine and State of Emergency. I had State of Emergency idea from previous demos, but I just took the title and, we rewrote the track.
Well, again, like I said, I had a hard time picking what track. I mean, there's even a deep album cuts such as Rainbow and the Rose. I mean, that's another one that just the progressive elements in that song. It's such a beautiful piece of music. But getting back into the track, I'm just going to read this intro part. The track's 5 minutes and 13 seconds. The whole band's in. There's a really cool guitar slide and simultaneous drum fill to start the song. The keyboards are predominant here, playing a hook that is heard throughout the choruses of the song. It's about a 22-second intro. At about the 9-second mark, Kip lets out a spirited yeah that sets up the first verse at the 22-second mark. Morning came and I was on my way when you reminded me I had too soon forgotten it was you that set me free. Was this written about a particular love interest?
No. I was just writing words because I was trying to crank them out at the time. I mean, everything that I've written has some basis in truth. I wish I was going to sound like this intelligent Einstein genius type going, well, I was thinking about this on those lyrics and stuff, but I knew the title was going to be Headed for a Heartbreak, and I thought, okay. I wanted to write something like Ramble On, and I think I even used that title in the song.
You do? Yeah, I was gonna ask about the Zeppelin reference later.
Right,
that's
so
cool.
the first verse was just a setup. But then you were here when I came, and you'll be here when I'm gone. So don't be waiting for love, because I'll be waiting to ramble on. That's really the essence of the tune.
Yeah, you were here when I came.
And by the way, not until like 3 years ago did I even get the double entendre about you were here when I came and you'll be here when I'm gone. I totally was thinking, hey, I came to your place and I left, and I didn't even think of the other side of what that means.
Yeah. Well, then that's what I wanted to ask you in a moment. The first part of this verse that I just read lyrics to, I like it because it breaks down to just keys, bass, drums, and vocals. It sounds like there's keyboard pads off to the left, and either a keyboard, definitely a keyboard panned right, but is there a guitar maybe arpeggio panned right there? Do you know? In that first part of the verse?
No. I had this giant stack of Roland keyboard modules. D50, and Yamaha. I had a Yamaha, one of those. I don't remember what the models were. It was like 8 modules in a rack. I had a D50, Juno 106, and a couple other, and Sonic, some weird keyboards, and it's a giant MIDI stack.
It's really buried off to the right. That's why I said maybe outside chance as a guitar. It sounds more like a keyboard, and the keyboard pads off to the left are more predominant. But I love how that breaks down. And then, it's really the second half, I think, of the verse, but I'm calling it the pre-chorus, and it's when the guitars kick in. Yeah, you were here when I came, and you'll be here when I'm gone. So don't be waiting for love, because I'll be waiting to ramble on. And I love when the guitars come in there. It's so heavy, but they're not that loud. It's interesting. They're not that forefront in the mix, but it gets heavy.
Reb has a genius ability to just come up with a lick in the middle of nowhere and make shit work. He's extremely musical.
Yeah.
And that shit just flies off the top of his head. I mean, that was a magical moment when I was like, okay, let's break it down. I was speaking to Reb, down here. So the song came alive when I came up with, I wrote the whole song, but I don't know if you can hear this.
Yeah, I can. There it is. Yeah.
And I recorded that on keyboards, and then when Reb played along with it on that lick is really when the song came alive.
Yeah.
And it was in a weird key. It's all black keys. It's G flat, A flat. Of course, we play it transposed down a key. We recorded in E flat, and then now we play in D. But this is how I wrote it. And then a weird modulation to the verse.
Yeah.
It's like a relative minor up to a B, right? So it's a Lydian. So this was deep in this whole thing where I was trying to come up with interesting chord changes and not be the cliche thing.
Yeah, and again, that's why I picked this tune. This song nobody was doing that. When you looked past, you lived it. It was so image driven what was going on. That's how MTV and radio were selling records then. But if you peel back the exterior of your band, the depth of talent and just what you were doing just now, those chordal patterns, it set you guys apart.
I appreciate that. I think the most interesting thing about the song is after the second chorus and half-step modulation.
Yes.
And what was nice about it is that I'd resolve on what was really like the two of the verse, and it just comes back to the verse. So, like I say, it was one of those weird accidents that just kind of fell into my hands. I don't even remember. Like, the first thing I did was sit down and went like this. That was like, it just happened immediately.
Yeah. Like you said, sometimes, and I've heard it so many times on this show, those magic moments, it just comes out of nowhere and it goes from heart and brain to fingers. It's the keys.
You know, at the time, I was like, is this even a chorus? I didn't even realize that it was a good chorus. I thought, is it really powerful enough? I was thinking, should we break into some like cliche thing? And I thought, you know.
Well, and that's what I want to talk about next. So at the 51-second mark, so this chorus hits you pretty quick. Right prior to it, that line that Zeppelin referenced, because I'll be waiting to ramble on, there's a really killer octave guitar lead up that leads up to the chorus there. I love what Reb does there. It's just a very tasty part.
I'll be waiting to ramble on, headed for a heartbreak, headed for a heartbreak.
And this is when the first harmonies come in. It's headed for a heartbreak. That lyric is twice. And after you say headed for a heartbreak, that's when the main keyboard hook comes in again. So it's showing up not in the intro, but it's coming back in the choruses, which is cool.
Yeah, so that was really the hook. And
Yeah.
that was when, like I say, when Reb played along with that's when the song came alive. So the chorus had a double hook, only it was one was a musical hook and one was a vocal hook.
Up to this point, do you remember how much the demo had changed and what Beau Hill brought to this? Did he have a lot to do with what was going on up to this part in the song, the chorus?
Nothing. No, listen to the demo. It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
All we did was recreate what I did in the demo. The only suggestion that he made on the whole first album was to speed up Madeleine, which was brilliant. Madeleine was originally very slow, but all we did was recreate what I did on the demos. That's not to take away from his abilities, because he was extremely talented. And I'd been working with him since I was 16, met him in Denver, recorded countless demos with him on his band, and worked kind of under him. I was kind of like his protege for years. He taught me a lot.
That's cool.
Super
That's
great,
cool.
great keyboardist. A lot of great song ideas. Good engineer. I mean, he taught me. One of his quotes was "Never leave yourself at the mercy of anyone." So it was kind of like encouraging me to learn how to engineer and all that stuff. So not to take anything away from him, but by the time I wrote the first album, I did it all I was all me. I mean.
Hey everybody, don't you dare go anywhere. There's lots more Chris DeMakes a Podcast after these messages from our sponsors.
What's up, everybody? I am Finn McKenty, host of the Punk Rock MBA podcast, part of the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. My podcast is all about doing what you love for a living, and every week I sit down and talk to people who have done exactly that. For example, musicians like Tommy from Between the Buried and Me, Matt from Periphery, Lil Lotus and Shinigami, among many others, photographers, artists, designers, YouTubers like Glenn Fricker and Sarah Dici, and I unpack exactly how they got to where they are today with the goal of helping you do the same. So if that sounds cool, you can listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com, and I'll see you there.
Each week on the One Hit Thunder podcast, we welcome a special guest to come take a deep dive into a one-hit wonder artist with us. And together, we decide if that artist brought the one-hit thunder or was nothing more than a one-hit blunder. You can find One Hit Thunder anywhere that you listen to podcasts, so hit that subscribe button and join in on the fun each week. And now, back to the show.
Getting into verse 2, darling, don't wait up for me. Tonight I won't be home. You've become a stranger. I just got to be alone.
By the way, I think that's the most relatable lyric in the whole song. I think a lot of people feel like that. When relationships start out, it's very passionate, and then you end up feeling more alone in the relationship than you are if you're actually alone.
It's crazy that you pointed that out. I have it starred on the sheet here. I was like, this really to me is what the song's about. This lyric in this verse.
It is, and the very last line. Don't you think I feel the pain? Because it's like,
yeah.
I present as this like the heartless. Don't fuck with me because you're head for a heartbreak. But at the end of it, I say, don't you think I feel the pain? Which is like, inside I'm dying, but I'm not going to show you.
Yeah. that vulnerability that we as songwriters sometimes have. Again, this second verse, it sounds like the first verse. There's not much else going on. It's kind of stripped down. In the second half, which I'm calling the pre-chorus, don't need nobody on my side to dull the blade I'm on. Don't be waiting for love, because I'll be waiting to ramble on. Again, and that octave guitar comes in there. And what I love about this second chorus is it's not like it's a double chorus. You're getting Headed for a Heartbreak 3 times with the keyboard hook, the hook of the song. After each time you say it, the harmonies are there. But I love the last time you say Headed for a Heartbreak. On break, the melody changes there on the word break, and that's the part you were just playing that modulates into that bridge part.
Yeah, I had a composition teacher in New York named Edgar Grana who was like, listen, do things in 3s, because if you do them in 4s, it's boring. Like, because he was referring to Bach. Like, a lot of times Bach will do things 3 times, because the 4th time around, the brain is like, okay, I heard that. Like, what's next? You only need a few. You don't need that many times to get it. So keep them moving. What is it? It's actually the same melody. I just don't change the chord. Then I go down to a half step, which is shocking in a way.
Yeah.
It's weird because that half step actually feels like a resolve, but it's a half step down. So that's the kind of miracle in music, that you can just twist something in a very slight way and it completely changes the energy field.
Yeah, and this is probably my favorite part of the song, when it lifts there, and just the way you sing this lyric. It's no mistake. Don't you think I can feel the pain? I walk away to live again. Just love the feel of that part, and it's a really short bridge. There's not too much there, but to me it's the perfect length.
Yeah, I think it says it, and I think people could relate to. A lot of people can relate to that. I walk away to live again. That's really, the human condition is if you're in a certain situation and it's just not working for you, you're just dying. So.
And when you were in the studio tracking this, did you have any of the suits, the label heads, A&R guy coming down to listen to the tracks? And
No.
No?
No, we made the record and then showed the record to everybody when we were finished.
Cool.
Bo had a unique relationship with Atlantic where he was we never had a proper A&R person. We went right to Doug Morris, the president of the label. Bo had a lot of clout because he had produced Rat, and they were, doing very well. And listen, the truth is that Doug Morris had heard every one of my demos for years, and Bo was, very gracious in trying to get me a record deal and pushing my stuff. And nobody wanted to hear my stuff. It's like, don't play me another Kip Winger song. He actually said that to him when Bo played the demos. But he heard State of Emergency and thought, oh, this sounds pretty good. And it was just like, look, just give us a bare bones deal and we'll prove ourselves to you. And so we had the luxury of being in the studio and not getting fucked with by anybody telling us
that's awesome.
That they didn't hear a hit or whatever.
I know how that is.
Yeah.
You get too many cooks in the kitchen. It's like you've been working, you and your bandmates and sometimes the producer, and then all of a sudden the suits walk in and just turn everything upside down. And it's not a great great thing.
Well, listen, when grunge hit and we were not in fashion, we were doing Pull. We got an A&R guy assigned to us who came into our rehearsal and was like, man, in Blind Revolution Mad, it was like, when I sing Jawbreaking lawmaker, having your way. He was like, you need a word right there at the top of the line, like love. He suggested love. And we were like, what? You know, have it your way, love. I'm singing fucking Blind Revolution mad. You know, here's this A&R guy going, put the word love there. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
go write your own fucking songs, dude. You know.
Yeah. Which is another great track from the Pole record.
Disclaimer, I mean, that's not to say that there's been great A&R people, Jimmy Iovine and John Kolodner and these types. I was just never lucky enough to have one of them, you know.
Yeah.
There have been many, many great A&R people, and that artist development position is gone now, and it's kind of a tragedy that it is, although the internet's made it possible for so many people to just, you know, break on their own. But, you know, we got this guy that didn't know what he was talking about.
which happens at the 2 minute and 10 second part of the song. So, you know, the track's 5:13. We're only halfway through, and we're at a guitar solo. Bass, keyboards, and drums are playing basically the verse progression here. There's no other guitars. It's just Reb doing this really tasteful solo, and Rod's kind of starting to break out and do his rhythmic thing here as well. And Reb does a really cool run leading up to chorus 3. While Kip gives us, you give us the spirited O that heads into chorus 3. Extended chorus. It's headed for a heartbreak, headed for a heartbreak. There's harmonies on both of that. Then you're alone on the line, don't make me hurt you. It's the first time we get that lyric in the song. Headed for a heartbreak with a harmony. Well, I know you're, it's you alone, headed for a heartbreak. And then the drums stop on break. There's a little guitar feedback and a keyboard swell that goes into that part you were talking about a moment ago, Kip, that lyric, don't you think I feel the pain? Right here, we're at the 3 minute mark of the song, and it's remarkable that the last 2 minutes and 14 seconds are a guitar solo with Rod just going off at certain moments. And the fact that you were able to get that played on radio and MTV, I mean, it's a really interesting arrangement.
Two things. Rod played it real straight, and we were like, come on, do your thing, man. Like, let her rip. And he was like, really? You know, so he was kind of surprised that we wanted to let him rip. But we were like, we got you in the band because you're Rod Morgenstein. Fucking let it rip, you know?
Yeah.
And
there's a part there at the end, I wrote here in the notes that it's, I think, the 3:44 mark, where it almost sounds like the track's going off the rails rhythmic-wise. It doesn't sound like he could get back on beat, but he somehow does. It's such a cool part.
Rod's amazing at that. He can, timing wise, he's basically play anything and bring it back to one. But the second half of the equation is there was a dude named Rick Krim over at MTV that was a huge Dixie Dregs fan and was instrumental in helping us get on MTV originally. And so, you know, when Headed for a Heartbreak came along, you know, it was one of those things where a perfect storm, you know. We were able to get that whole like muso statement out there, and also have the quote suits be behind it, you know, because we had a lot of momentum at that time too, you know.
Well, this outro, I had written in my notes, it really shows the band's progressive side. And I noticed, and I remember, I should say, that this song ended the record. So it's almost fitting that the tune had this long outro. It's kind of like a coda, a stamp on the end of the record. Was that why it was chosen to end the album?
Yeah, it is. And I've also created a tradition of doing that to put these kind of songs last on the album.
Yeah.
Witness and
Did anybody from the label or MTV or the radio stations that were picking the track up, did any of them have issue with this length and want to cut down this ending?
Yeah, for sure. But
because that was a big thing back then. We still do it today, but radio edits were huge in the 80s and 90s.
back then it was like, it wasn't pop radio, it was like AOR, so they were digging it. And Danny Bush, like I said, he was very instrumental in pushing the track as it was. And also we kept it in the video, so the video played and the video was popular, and so they left it on radio. Richie Sambora actually came up to Reb at one point and said, "Dude, you're the luckiest guitar player in rock. You get like a giant solo on the radio. Like, it's very rare,
Well, yeah, not only does he get a 35, 36 second solo in the middle of the song, but then he gets the 2 minutes at the end, which is just, again, this is really a 3-minute pop song with a 2-minute outro. It's really different.
Right.
Well, I love the track. Again, I'm a fan, and there's a ton of your songs that I wrestled with. My producer, Chris, I'm like, should we do Miles Away? Should we do this? And ended up going with this one. I just thought it was really interesting and really set you guys apart from the pack of what was going on then. There was just so much more to Winger behind the exterior of the look of all the other bands and what was going on. And again, want to thank you for sitting in today. And if there's anything that you'd like to leave the listeners with, what's going on with the band? You said you got a new record coming out?
We're 3/4 of the way through a new album, and I should be finished with it sooner than later. Don't know exactly when it's coming out, but I think, we've got some good songs on there. I've tried to, keep the level. I always try to keep the bar rising, and on a personal level, I'm writing a violin concerto for the Nashville Symphony, and I'm going to be making an album with them. I wrote my first symphony that'll be premiered in March 17th in Nashville at the Nashville Symphony. So
congratulations. I've
got both worlds actively cooking, and like I say, the new Winger album should be out sooner than later. I'm about 3/4 of the way finished. And everybody, please go like our pages and subscribe to the YouTube channel and stuff. That would be very helpful.
For sure. And one last thing I want to say, I just want to give props to you. You sound like you did back in the 80s, man. There's not a lot of guys that, the older we get, I know the voice is a muscle, and you're killing it. I've seen some of the live videos recently, and you close your eyes, you sound like you did 30 years ago. So that's great.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And Reb, the harmonies, they're just killer.
I haven't had a drink since 2012, and that, I used to drink, and I couldn't sing anymore, man. It was killing my voice. And I was like, screw this. So I quit drinking, and my voice came back, I had a lot of trouble. Like 2010-ish. Quit drinking, and I just I warm up all the time, and just try to keep it going.
Yeah, well, you sound great. And again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. Good luck to you guys.
Hey, everybody, don't touch that dial. There's plenty more Chris DeMakes a podcast after a few words from our sponsors.
Hello out there. Yes, hello out there, everyone. I'm Hal Schwartz.
And I'm Flynn McLean. Together, we host None But the Brave, a podcast dedicated to the music and career of Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce and E Street Band are on tour right now for the first time in 6 years, and we're taking a detailed look at what's happening on stage in our bi-weekly episodes.
We've also been recently joined by some very exciting guests, including rock journalist Warren Zanes and Stephen Hayden, Backstreet's Magazine founder Charles Cross, and Barstool's Kirk Minahan.
If you're a diehard Springsteen fan, this is the show for you.
So please subscribe to None But the Brave on your favorite podcasting platform, and we hope to see you further on up the road.
Thank you so much. We'll be seeing you.
Hey, do you have an idea for a podcast but don't know where to start? Or do you have an already existing podcast that you want to take to the next level? Well, check out WeKnowPodcasting.com. From concept development to theme music to editing to logos, WeKnowPodcasting.com is a one-stop shop for all things pod. Don't hesitate to hit us up. We're very nice.
As we near the end of the show, here's a band you might not know.
Welcome to this week's Band You Might Not Know. If you'd like your band to be considered for Chris DeMakes a Podcast, all you have to do is submit your song via MP3 only and your bio to bandyoumightnotknow@gmail.com. This week's featured band is Debt Cemetery, a 5-piece melodic punk band from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, featuring Davey Knight on lead vocals, Eddie Knowlton on rhythm guitar and backing vocals, Nick McDougall on the drums, Alex Guimond on bass and backing vocals, and Bill Morton on lead guitar and backing vocals. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Bandcamp. Here's a snippet of their song, Daved and Confused.
I'm up but not on top, but lately haven't really slept that much. Has been a mess, it feels like I'm chewing on glass.
The Wrap with Chris and Chris.
Well, man, I sound like a broken record, but that was another great episode. But I have to tell people about this up front. When Kip came on, there was 2 instances right from the start where I think he was very deadpan being funny, but he was kind of like, hey, man, fuck you to me. And I was like, what? But
I know. I was like, oh, this is going to be one of those. I'm like, he's not going to be nice.
He was actually nice. I think he was just being funny, but he was very good at being like very deadpan about it, because at first I was like, what the hell is going on here? But yeah, I thought it was a great episode regardless.
It was. You know, if you would have told me in 1988 when I was a sophomore in high school that I would be interviewing this huge star that was all over MTV some 33 years later, I would have told you that you were absolutely out of your mind.
Chris, we've talked about this before. I'm notoriously not a hair metal guy at all, but this particular song that you're talking about, Headed for a Heartbreak, I remember it from when I was a kid, but I think you kind of brought this up to Kip as well, but it seems like it's a lot more than that. There's a lot more substance to this song. And even when Kip broke out the keys and started playing along, and the way he talked about the song, you could tell that, yeah, their style fit into the hair metal thing, obviously, but there's a lot more substance to their music than that.
Well, they're another band kind of like Enough's Enough that you had to look the part to get on MTV. You know, you had to have that look. If you had short hair and you were just dressed like you were off the street, you didn't have as great of a chance of getting on the show. And MTV was such a vehicle for selling records, as we all know back then. It was the biggest way that you could break your band at that time. And, you know, fairly or unfairly, they got lumped in with that. But there was a lot behind that band. Again, Rod Morgenstein, the drummer, incredible, played with, the Dixie Dregs, which were a band that had been around for years that, cut their teeth in all the clubs. He had played every gig. Rod was probably close to 40 when he joined Winger. Then you had Reb Beach, who's just an incredible guitarist. And Kip has that, classical background. He studied ballet, and producer Beau Hill took him under his wing as his protege at like 16 years old and developed him, told him to keep writing. He ended up writing for, I had mentioned in the intro, he had wrote for Kicks, this band that had some hits in the later 80s, and from there, co-writing that song got him the Alice Cooper gig, and from there did all those demos that became the first Winger record.
Yeah, it's crazy. I had no idea that he played in Alice Cooper's band. And what's funny, Chris, is usually you have me send you notes beforehand on the band, any notable things that you might or might not know about the artist that we're having on that week. But this week you were like, nope, I don't need any notes. I know everything about Winger. I was like, good enough, man.
Yeah, and I didn't get into it because Kip's heard this too many times over the years, but they got lambasted by Beavis and Butthead. They were the butt of the jokes, and you had Lars Ulrich, I think, in the Nothing Else Matters Metallica video, throwing darts at a Kip Winger dartboard, and it was just they were looked at as everything that was wrong in the 80s, that was passe, and it was just pomp and circumstance and all this poofy hair. But again, pull all that back, wonderful musicianship in this band, just amazing players, great band.
Yeah, that seems like it may have been a little bit misdirected, is like, yeah, they were part of the whole hair metal thing that was easy to make fun of, but maybe they were the wrong band to be making fun of because the actual musicality was there. It wasn't, I'm sure a lot of those bands didn't have the, whatever you want to call it, the background and the know-how or
they didn't. A band that was bigger than them sold more records, was Poison, and just notoriously not a great band. I think Brett's gotten a lot better over the years as a vocalist. Certainly works his ass off, Brett Michaels. I mean, the guy's just a workaholic and has built a wonderful career for himself, but that band could not hold a candle to the musicianship in Winger. They just couldn't. And, again, I picked this song because it had those progressive elements, and what a weird track. This 3-minute pop song with a 2-minute guitar solo outro where you got the likes of Richie Sambora coming up to to Reb Beach and the band and saying, I can't believe you got not only did you get a solo within the first 3 minutes of the song, but you had a 2-minute outro solo. I can't get more than a 25-second Bon Jovi solo on the radio.
That's pretty strange. It's pretty cool that the song stood on its own enough that despite the strange structure, it was still a hit. And one thing I took away from this episode, Chris, is when Kip was talking about doing things in threes, because 4 times is too many and you'll get bored.
Yeah.
But 3 is just the right amount. Now, I know that probably doesn't work every time, but I just thought that was interesting because, 2 might seem like too short, but I could see 4 of something being too many. And I don't know. That's like the one thing he said that I was like, interesting.
Yeah, it's not a general rule, but it was something that, and those kinds of things always pop out to me because I have the lyrics printed and I have my notes and I'm like, whoa, this chorus is twice, this one's 3 times. And then the last chorus in this song isn't even 4 times. It's like 5.5, but the refrain, Headed for a Heartbreak is still only repeated like 3 times, but it's all the lyrics in between that Kip was singing, which drags that third chorus out. So it was a very different arrangement. The bridge is really short in this song, but so cool how it modulates to that key change in the bridge that Kip was showing us. So I enjoyed it, man. He was very humble. You could tell he wanted to do the episode. You never know how you're gonna, with any guests that you don't know, if they're gonna want to be here, if they think, oh, this is just another interview. I don't want to do this. And he was into it, and I gave him praise at the end. He just turned 60 in June, and if you pull up some recent YouTube videos of him, you close your eyes, and he sounds like he's it's still 1988. His voice is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. He looks great too. I gotta say, the guy, when you watch his old music videos, he's a handsome guy, and then he came on the thing. I'm like, oh, that's a good-looking guy. I would have never guessed that he was 60. So.
Yeah, just turned 60, and they're still out there doing it, man. Props to them.
Yeah, man, and speaking of being out there doing it, you've been out there doing those custom songs, right?
Absolutely, and we're getting close to the December holidays, Christmas, Hanukkah, all the rest of them. If you want a custom song for me, hit me up, ChrisDeMakes@gmail.com. I'd love to write one for you, that special someone, a coworker, a foe, a friend. Get your orders in because I'd like to get them to you by the holidays. Again, that's ChrisDeMakes@gmail.com. And what else you got going on, Chris, that you'd like to talk about? It's a busy month.
It is a busy month, Chris. I was just thinking that I would like to get a custom song for you for one of my foes.
I haven't actually written one of those yet, but that'd be fun.
That would be awesome if someone hired you to write a song for an enemy. But that's an idea for anyone out there for that last minute enemy gift. Hit up Chris.
Yeah. Do you hate your boss? I'd love to write one for your boss.
Dude, that would be awesome. Yeah, Chris, at the end of these episodes, we always try to plug something that you or I have going on. And I was thinking, hey, if anyone out there has Amazon Prime and you haven't yet, My Band Punchline has a music special on there, which you can watch for free with part of your subscription right now. Just search for Punchline Music Special. And then after you watch that, you can see me again on Amazon Prime. Search for the movie Back for Good. I am the 7th build in this movie, maybe the 6th. I got a bunch of lines in that movie, man. Back for Good and the Punchline Music Special. I'm all over Amazon Prime, man.
George Clooney, eat your heart out. Chris Falios is on your heels.
That's right.
He is on.
That's right.
On your heels. I still love when you walked the red carpet of the movie premiere, man. You were all dappered up. I was proud of you, man. I was proud.
I was dapper as hell.
Heck yeah. And again, I feel like a broken record here, but we have so much fun. Please, if you haven't already, join our Facebook Chris DeMakes a Podcast group. It is awesome. Almost 4,000 active members at this point. Give me a follow on Instagram at LessThanChrisD. And I want to thank this week's guest, Mr. Kip Winger. Awesome episode, and we'll see you next week.
If you're a fan of fierce, honest, in-your-face rock music, check out Another Cheetah. Based out of Greensburg, Pennsylvania, Another Cheetah lives to plug in, turn up, and rock out.
Why do I destroy myself? You'd be much better off with someone else.
Another Cheetah, streaming now on Spotify, Apple Music, and wherever else you listen to music.
Mad Magazine.
Advertising mascots.
B-movie posters.
And cartoons.
Oh yeah, can't forget cartoons.
If you get the funky connection that ties these pop culture gems together, you'll dig Two Designers Walk Into a Bar.
See, we're a couple of creatively curious pals living between the bookends of grand museums and dive bars.
Hey, you know the place, the sweet spot where highbrow and lowbrow become drinking buddies.
So join our barroom chats as we talk influential work and uncover stories of how the familiar became iconic. Think behind the music for the stuff we love.
Check out our website at twodesignerswalkintoabar.com.
And listen wherever you get your podcasts or visit evergreenpodcasts.com.
Hey there, I am Johnny Christ from Avenged Sevenfold, and I've got a podcast called Drinks with Johnny you're going to want to check out. I sit down with a bunch of different people from all different walks of life, from professional wrestlers to actors, comedians, fighters, musicians, everything in between. I'm just looking to make some friends and have a good time doing it. So if that sounds like something you're into, go check out Drinks with Johnny, streaming everywhere now.